I'll show you some of my life and things. Oh, I don't know how to do this. Hey, this is, turn this on. This is me about 14 on a horse in Webb City. I was over at my aunt's house. Like I said, I've had a lot of animals in my life. During the 80s, I used to show and breed Kaysons. They're Dutch barge dogs. This is my champion girl, who I brought back. She's from Midwest to Arizona. She had so much coat, we went to do her hips. And they over anesthesia because she had like 11 pounds of coat. And they killed her. And there's nothing you can do when a vet kills your dog. Just so you know. Then, let's see, what was I with? My second husband, we went to California when we lived in Arizona. And we got Uno, my Rottweiler of 9 years. He was 6 months old, and I kept him up until the 90s when I left Arizona, and I went to live in back here in the Midwest, and I knew that with his arthritis, he was not going to be able to deal with the cold. So my babysitter, who had babysat him for years, had begged and begged to keep him. So in the 90s when I left there, I left him. And then my life, I don't remember where my life was. These are just animals. I don't want to put my life in. I don't want to go in through that. But I just thought I would share this with you. That was Uno, my Rottweiler, my first and only Rottweiler. They're very aggressive breed when they get about 3 years old. He wanted to protect his mommy, and he did. So when I got to Kansas City, back to Missouri, and then on to Kansas City, and I got married to my fourth husband, I ended up getting another dog. It was an accident. I had bought a mobile home in the same place where we lived and owned our home, and I was fixing it up, and so the neighbor come over saying, my dog thinks she's having her baby. So I went over and kind of watched her. It was a little bitty terrier. And so she comes and says, help me, help me. So I went and helped. Okay, we got the babies here. On the third day, I cut their tails off and did their dew claws on the ones. There were only 3 of them. Anyway, I ended up taking a little boy named Pepper. And at 3 weeks old, she brings Pepper down, running to me and going, Mama won't have no milk. She can't feed them. So this is Mr. Pepper. And Mr. Pepper was with me for 9.5 years. He went everywhere that I did. As you can see, he's very small. He was in a coffee cup, okay? He was a character. This is how he traveled. In a purse. Can you see the purse? I'm not sure. He traveled in this purse. When he was little, he went to the grocery store and everything. As he got older, he traveled into a bigger one and went to every restaurant and everything that there was. When I worked at the place where I took pictures, this was Pepper. He was 5 years old in this picture. I had him up until he was 9. And at 9 years old, he got a tumor. And I went to pick him up one day to put him up on the couch, and he bit me. And never would he ever do that. He was in too much pain. So we decided that with him not able to do things, it would be better to go ahead and let him go. So I put him in his favorite purse. It was just looked like a purse. And he would go into restaurants and sit down. We'd go to some fancy restaurants and sit down. He went to the grocery store. He went to the doctor. He went to the movies. He went everywhere I did in this purse. So this is me and him. And as you can see, yes, this is before Granny had her gastric bypass. I was 354 pounds. I was a big girl. for a lot of years. I stayed at 300. And so that's me and Mr. Pepper. Still me. Anyway, I wanted to share some of my animals with you. And of course, then after Pepper, there was Gigi, and I may put a picture of her. She's a little long-coated Chihuahua I have. And then, of course, came Miss Tippy. And in between, I had 2 farm dogs, which was Clyde, the white male Pyrenees. I'll put afterwards in some pictures. And Houdini, which I don't have any of, and that was what she was. She could not keep her in anywhere. She was wild. We lived on 200 acres, and she lived under the trailer. She came out to eat. I could pet her once in a while, but that was the way it was, and she was an old dog. They were running well up into the 10, 12, 14 bracket when I picked them up, and I had them for 6 years, and I took very good care of them. And they had all the shots. I did everything. I don't have animals that are abused, and people would dump their dogs, and I felt so sorry because the coyotes would just eat them. They'd dump out a little dog, and a few days later it would disappear. You would see its corpse running out there because the coyotes took it down the night before, and you couldn't get near it. So, and some of them I took, and I paid to take them to the shelter because they were going to die out there, and I just couldn't have. I already had 4 dogs. Well, how many more does one person need? 4 dogs, and I had all my animals. I didn't want to take a risk, so it was part of my farm life when I lived in Secaucus, Missouri. I miss it. My goat had babies. I think I showed you that picture. Anyway, she just had babies a few weeks ago. They're just as cute as a button. I'll try and maybe attach them at the end too. Anyway, this is just a video of sharing some of my life with you. And there was a horse in between, a Morgan, that I had for 3 years that I took care of and lived across the street when I was a teenager. And I used to ride her all the time bareback, and she just dropped the reins and she'd stand. She'd been very well trained. She was an old girl, and she finally had a baby. So I enjoyed my young years. We didn't have a lot of money, but I had a lot of fun. I did a lot of things, and I was kept at home. I didn't start driving. I'll get to those movies because that's my next, from 10 to 20. I may throw in a few younger ones years that I missed, but I'm trying. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video of some of the animals that I've spent my life with. And that's just a few. There were a ton of them when I was a baby. We always had dogs around, and animals and rabbits and pigs, and I've just always been kind of a farm girl. So anyway, later.